Hey everybody, this is Perch. We're getting more and more insight into what DC Comics is going to look like for the rest of 2021 and kind of ongoing. Infinite Frontier Zero dropped today. This is, once upon a time, this would have been a marketing issue that they would have given away either for free or kind of 99 cents to kind of promote the various initiatives that DC is doing. Because that's what it is. This is a comic with basically a lot of little stories that really are designed to kind of tee up where the DC universe is going and where these titles are going. And it is it's fine for what it is. It kind of touches on a number of things. I'm not going to give away big spoilers here. There are maybe a couple really minor ones, but nothing that's going to wreck your comic for you. They definitely try and set up kind of the bigger threat of Darkseid, and that he's kind of returning to being a very threatening character. The character had been overused a bit. It feels like when Grant Morrison used him for Final Crisis, that almost it was a very big dramatic story, but since that period he's been lesser, and they kind of respond to that in the comic and make a point to try and build him up as being a bigger deal. And there's definitely little hints that maybe this is leading to an event, because I mean, if you're DC, you have to be looking at Marvel and going, hey, there's a lot of events that they do over there, and they seem to make more money than the regular titles. Maybe we need to do that too. Events tend to get translated into movies. I don't know. I would like it not to be the case, but it definitely feels like DC is steering down the let's do events path. But this title, basically Infinite Frontier, is going to be followed up in June by Infinite Frontier #1, which will be by Joshua Williamson. Covers by Mitch Gerards, which is a little bit odd in the sense that Mitch tends to do these kind of Tom King series. We'll talk more about Mr. King in a minute. But you don't really think of Mitch Gerards for big event comics, but hey, we'll see what happens. Infinite Frontier will be 6 issues starting in June. We don't really know the release schedule yet, but let's assume that it's monthly for. We haven't heard anything else, so I guess we just assume that. Maybe it will be weekly or bi-weekly, or maybe it will be monthly for a while and then randomly change to be to be late and delayed. Who knows? It's always magic with comics. We find these things out. But this comic is starting in June, and if that's the case, then we kind of are starting to map out what the fall is going to look like for DC. Starting in June, 6 issues, be ending in November. If we're going to lead into an event after that, we're talking about a December, January kind of event structure. I've heard that within DC, they would like to kind of carve out the end of the year as being the place to kick off events. Marvel's done that with King in Black to some success. Used to be the summer was when they would do events. Now it's like, let's do the summer and the winter. And then pretty soon people are going to figure out there are 4 seasons, and then, the rest writes itself. But what we're also seeing from DC is that they are moving to this new model of basically kind of dropping a new comic every month. So this is different from what they've done in the past. Think about the New 52 or Rebirth or some of their other launches. You typically, and this is what people have grown to expect, you have your first month and you have a bunch of comics, new #1s and reboots and everything else. Well, DC is doing it differently. They're taking a much more slow, one might argue methodical approach, or cautious approach. And that is basically giving us, Green Lantern, rather than launching in March with the other new books, is launching in April. And then in May, we're getting the Yara Flor book. And in June, we're getting Infinite Frontier, and we're getting a brand new Supergirl book. Infinite Frontier is 6 issues. Supergirl is also a limited series. It's basically going to be 8 issues, which is kind of an odd number. And it's going to be written by Tom King. So Tom King taking on Supergirl. This is the Woman of Tomorrow, so we'll find out what horrible, depressing things she has done in her past. And Eisner nominee Bilquis Evely, who did the Sandman Universe of Dreaming. Kind of an unusual choice for Supergirl. Anyway, they're going to be on it starting in June. So we have a brand new Tom King series. Something else for him to do. Batcat will be continuing. I think his other comics will have wrapped up by then. And we get Infinite Frontier #1. So let's now unpack kind of what all these things mean. So as mentioned earlier, DC is taking kind of an unusual approach, and I want to dive in a little bit more to that. In the past, we've seen these issues kind of come out all at once. They do a big branding event, and it's a bunch of new #1s all in the same month. And instead, what we're seeing here is a much slower crawl. It does feel like we're going to be up to a total volume of comics by the end of the year of kind of about where they were. I would imagine they're back in the 40s, at least for the titles they're shipping monthly. I do expect them to put some more love with Black Label and some of these other efforts. And so there are a lot of titles here, but they're easing into it very slowly. The other thing that's happening is that a lot of these comics are being given a very short leash. Now, it's hard to really assess why. And some people think they know, and they believe they have insiders and all the rest, and they know what's going on in the AT&T boardroom. Again, nobody in the AT&T boardroom are talking about whether or not to make Supergirl an ongoing series or a limited series. That's not happening anywhere. But there are some interesting choices being made. Swamp Thing is a 10-issue series. Supergirl is an 8-issue series. Those are weird numbers, or by weird, I mean unusual for this industry. The expectation, you see Ram V talking on Twitter about, hey, if people really buy into this and they like it, then it will be extended. And it's not a bad idea to launch these series and keep them going. This happened a lot in the 80s. You saw this was, famously West Coast Avengers. I think Power Pack was the same way. There were other comics that launched as limited series or launched with a shorter leash. They gauged customer interest. They marketed them, hoping that the customers would come and then it would expand. And it did. And that's a good plan. There's nothing wrong with that. And if that's where DC is going, that they're going to put out a lot of limited series and try and put some pressure on people to kind of buy in and support the title and therefore get a stronger audience, you get the feeling that customers feel like they're controlling a bit more of the fate of these books. That's not a bad plan. On the other hand, this could also be kind of a different way of doing what Marvel does, which is you just have a lot of number ones, you have a lot of limited series, you have a constant rotating door of relaunches, and they're just doing it here by putting the limited series label on it. Again, the speculation is going to come that, hey, the reason they're doing this is because they don't know if there will be an operation, 12 months from now. And that's fine, but I mean, that's kind of irrelevant to the bigger topic here, which is they're putting out on a very short leash, short span, a number of titles. They're slowly easing them into the market. If, and this is a big underlined if doing this, one of the reasons they're doing this is so they can take more care and time and attention into marketing them. So they make sure that they find their audience, that they keep the spotlight on these new books that they're putting out, then that's a good decision. But so far, at least, we've seen a very clumsy marketing approach. So maybe that's their intent, but we're not actually getting the second half of that story. But if the idea is that they're going to be a little bit more cautious in building out their universe, they're going to make sure the titles they're launching are going to stick. Those are good things. There's a lot of kind of strange stuff out in the air. One listener wrote me to say that they're looking at their subscription form for DC, and they're seeing Hawkman on that list. The crazy part is we don't know if that's an error or if this is kind of revealing that there's a Hawkman title coming. I mean, who knows, right? That's kind of the oddness of all this. I do expect in August or September, because now we're seeing a big title, we're seeing kind of these characters get reintroduced. We had Green Lantern, then Yara Flor, now Supergirl. In this case, it is a limited series, but it's also Tom King being put on that. And, we can all go into what Tom King's Supergirl is going to be like. But then I expect in August or July to see things like 1 month will be Aquaman. We'll eventually get to the JSA. I do believe we're going to continue to see this every month. A bigger title is launched and they do some fanfare around it. The question will be, how good will that fanfare be? And are they also going to copy Marvel's style of doing a bunch of fanfare for issue 1 and promptly forgetting entirely about it for every future issue? These are just questions we have, but this is state of DC where it's at right now. It's interesting. Crazy part is it may be a different approach, or it may be a kind of weird clone of what Marvel does. It's hard to tell. We'll also see if this Infinite Frontier 6-issue series is truly leading up to a super mega duper crisis kind of event, or if we're heading down that way as well. Time will tell. But for you, what are you bought into? Did you read Infinite Frontier? Do you like it? Are you excited by these news announcements? Are you interested to see Tom King take on Supergirl? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Check all my information in the description of this video, and thanks for listening.